don't know about you, but for me, the end of the first quarter of the year is usually a pretty big reality check in terms of my plans and intentions and what I want to get done. And I figure there's a pretty good chance that you have also recently opened your bullet journal, looked at your yearly spread, and thought, how can I still make all of this happen? No, just me? Anyway, if you are feeling that way, this video is about some ideas for you. One of my favorite books about like achieving goals and goal setting and all of that stuff is Finished. Give Yourself the Gift of Done by Jon Acuff. And it's all about how you can meet your goals more consistently and make progress more easily with the help of counterintuitive mindset hacks. I get chills just saying that phrase. I love it. So I wanted to share some of my favorite ones because if you're new here, hello, I am Brittany, the founder of WorkBrighter, and we are a community that loves some counterintuitive advice. So if you love that stuff too, or if you need to find a better balance between productivity and self-care, hit the subscribe button below for more videos like this. Now let's start talking about finishing. So the first concept you need to know about from the book Finish is to stop relying on grit. This is an overarching concept throughout like the whole book. The whole book is built on the premise that grit doesn't work. We are taught that the only reason that we don't achieve our goals or achieve the things we want to is because we are not trying hard enough, or we don't want it bad enough, or we don't have enough grit. But that's just a lie that hustle culture is telling us, one of the many. Just trying harder to make progress isn't the answer. Making progress easier to achieve is what you want to do instead. I also talk about this in my burnout book summary and in my theory of tiny hops versus big leaps. So I will link to both of those in the description below. So if trying harder and working smarter aren't the answer, what is? I mean, in short, working brighter, but what does this book say the answer is? Things like having fun, rejecting perfectionism, making your goals smaller, purposely failing at things, and other counterintuitive productivity tactics outlined in the rest of this book. So let's talk about some of them. The first way you can stop relying on grit is to reject perfectionism. Easier said than done. But according to Acuff, perfectionism disguises itself as excellence and tells you that if you're not going to do something perfectly or every day, there is no use doing it at all. And just from getting to know my own brain, I can confirm this is true, but you're gonna mess up at some point. So to actually finish, just accept that imperfection. As an example from my life, I long ago gave up being someone who gets 10,000 steps a day, even though it's what a lot of health professionals recommend and it's the default on things like Fitbits. Don't get me wrong, I do have an unhealthy obsession with meeting my Fitbit step goal, and I will start jogging in place at 11:45 p.m. if I haven't met it yet. But that Fitbit step goal has never been and likely will never be as high as 10,000 steps. It's currently at 6,000, but that's like the highest it's ever been, and I have no problem with having a lower goal when it comes to physical activity like this. When I first got my Fitbit, it's because I was recovering from ankle surgery. And so back then, my step goal was only 2,000 steps a day. That's like a 10-15 minute walk equivalent, but I was recovering from ankle surgery, so it was really difficult to get that many steps, and a big deal when I managed to do it. And so as I've increased my step goals over the years, I've just tried to keep that motivation and celebration for the small goals. So you want to account for imperfection and reality when you are planning and setting your goals. I would love to be someone who is so active that they get 10,000 steps a day, but with the reality of my body and the way my ankles are, that's not going to happen. So I've accepted that imperfection. And planning for imperfection is also part of the WorkBrighter practical productivity mindset and framework, assuming that the best case scenario is not going to happen and planning and coming up for contingencies in advance. Another lie that hustle culture and perfectionism tells us is that we always need to think bigger, that your goal should always be big and intense, and anything outside or less than the traditionally accepted version of success is playing small. I hate that phrase. That mindset mindset is really pervasive in the industries that I've worked in, and I feel like it's just self-sabotaging after a point. The idea is like, set huge goals because shoot for the moon, and even if you miss, you'll land among the stars, or something like that. And stars may be pretty, but I'd rather not be floating aimlessly through space, thank you very much. Anyway, it's not true. The opposite is. Especially when you account for the planning fallacy, which is a really big part of the theory behind practical planning, and is the idea that humans are just generally awful at predicting how long things will take. So it's a mistake to even trust our first instincts with goals and plans and timelines and how long things will take, let alone to take that initial instinct or estimate and then intensify or shorten or 10x it. Instead, we either need to make the goal smaller or extend the deadline out further, which again is part of both the stuff I talked about in the burnout book summary and in practical planning. We all talk about this. Please listen to us. And in most cases, adjusting a reasonable goal or falling short but still doing your best still gets you further than if you'd quit or stuck with the original unreasonable goal. It's like, instead of shooting for the moon so that if you miss you'll land among the stars, shoot for the ceiling so that even if you miss you'll land on soft carpet and not like break any bones. It doesn't sound inspiring, but it's true. Although you might tear an ankle ligament, speaking from experience. That's how the ankle surgery happened. I was doing a switch leap in the competition production number to Let It Roll, and I did. My ankle, I let it roll. Making your goal smaller is why my step goal is only at 6,000 steps per day, but I still get more steps per day than a lot of my friends and family members who have the goal of 10,000 steps. There is a great story in the book about someone who lowered their daily goal for themselves for a word count for writing, and once they did, not only were they meeting their new lower word count goal way more often, but they actually started regularly meeting that original higher goal. Just removing the expectation of the pressure made it happen more frequently. And you can be damn sure I lowered my own writing word count goal after I read that story. The fourth concept that Acuff talks about is choosing to fail at some things so you can succeed at what matters. You can't do it all. Stop trying to. Instead, intentionally choose what to bomb in advance. This lets you avoid the shame that comes when you're juggling too many balls and all of them drop. Instead, you are choosing to put some of them down on the floor in advance or pass them off to other people or systems. And for things that you can't drop or hand off, you can maybe simplify. In the book, he describes thinking of things as a red, yellow, green light system. You assign red to things that you can put on pause and are putting on pause. Yellow is for things that you have intentionally slowed down, and green is for things that you're focused on and that have the right of way. The next idea he gives for making progress easier is one that I am honestly kind of amazing at, to toot my own horn a little bit, and it is to find the fun. Found it. Perfectionism tells us the harder something is, the better, and so fun goals don't count. But if you want to reach your goals, you need to make them fun. And that doesn't mean not pursuing anything that doesn't sound so much fun. It means finding a way to inject fun into things that are important to you. And he also recommends to unpack your motivations a little bit. Figure out the right way to make things fun for you. For me, it is making them colorful and whimsical and unicorny. All right. It's time for you to sit back down. The next tip for finishing your goals is to know what Acuff calls your noble obstacles and hiding places. Hiding places are activities that you focus on instead of the thing you should be doing. Like how when I don't want to reply to emails, my apartment gets really clean. And noble obstacles are reasonable sounding excuses or reasons for why you haven't met your goal yet. For example, how I kept telling myself that I couldn't start a YouTube YouTube channel because I have really low energy. These were limiting beliefs. And while I speak a lot about how the concept of limiting beliefs is often used to spiritually bypass people with real trauma and limitations, limiting beliefs do exist. Other people are just really bad at guessing them, but it's worth figuring yours out for yourself. Another thing that you want to look out for is secret rules that you've written for yourself to move the goalposts to avoid achieving your goal. A big way that this shows up is creating qualifiers for ourselves around what counts. Like telling ourselves that for something to count, it needs to be difficult, or we need to be miserable, or it can't come naturally to us, and stuff like that. Personally, I used to tell myself that exercise didn't count unless I legit broke a sweat. But as I've accepted the limits of my body and my ankles and gone through physical therapy and regular therapy, I have learned how to ignore that rule and rethink what exercise means for me. Secret rules. Identify them, destroy them, replace them. Another thing that Acuff recommends is to track and celebrate your progress. The way that Acuff puts it in the book is that failure is loud and progress is quiet. I love that. But data can help you see through that dissonance. It helps you give yourself proof that you're moving along. This is why I love habit tracking and bullet journaling so much, because depending on how you do it, it either turns tracking progress and data collection into like a game or a coloring project. And then tracking your progress also helps you see when you're stuck and make adjustments. Depending on what you need or what you're looking for, data can either prove process or progress. And through analyzing it and just tracking it and just paying attention, you can figure out whether you need to adjust your goal itself, the timeline, or the process and actions. The last trick that Acuff gives is to phone a friend, get some help. Sometimes, most often right before you cross your goal's finish line, the fear of success gets bigger than ever. And it can also be harder to have breakthroughs on your own because there's such little space left between you and the finish line. Kind of like how in football, the zone right before the touchdown, you would think because it's a short space that it would be easier to cross, but like that's never the case. I don't know the real football terms, but like I know that much. So in that situation, it can be helpful to call a friend and talk it out and see if they see anything in the scenario that you can't that might be helpful. So to recap, the 9 ways that you can make progress feel easier and achieve your goals faster are to stop relying on grit, reject perfectionism, make your goals smaller, choose to fail, find the fun, know your noble obstacles, watch out for secret rules, track and celebrate progress, and phone a friend. And I absolutely loved these counterintuitive mindset hacks from Jon Acuff, and definitely recommend reading the book if you haven't yet. So let me know in the comments below if you're gonna read it, if you're gonna try any of these tricks, and what you think. And if you're in a binge mode mood, you might want to check out my video on tiny hops to learn more about my own opinion on setting small goals. Bye, and have a brighter week.